Portugal, ranked 9th in the world by FIFA. Home of the talismanic enigma that is Cristiano Ronaldo, Portugal have now qualified for their 8th World Cup finals in Qatar. It would take 7 attempts for the Iberian nation to qualify for their first tournament. England 1966. Enter Eusebio, the man, the myth, the legend. The Portuguese stormed into the World Cup with 3 goals each in 3 huge wins over Hungary, then Bulgaria, and the mighty Brazilians. Eusebio would score 4 goals against the North Koreans in the quarterfinal in a high-scoring 5-3 match. The debutants were in dreamland, but roughly brought back down to earth in the semi-final by the English, who would not be denied on home soil. Sir Bobby Charlton, who else, with both goals in the 2-1 win for the hosts. Eusebio's men would face the Soviet Union in the 3rd place match, where he would net for a 9th time in the tournament, earning him the Golden Boot. 3rd place for the Portuguese in their first outing would set a record for debutants that would not be matched until the Croatians roared onto the scene in 1998. Another 28 years would pass before the World Cup was graced by the Portuguese once again in Mexico 1986. Unfortunately, they would fail to produce the same magic as they did in England. However, they would notch a bit of revenge against the Brits in the opening match with a 1-0 victory. The other 2 games proved to be a disappointing letdown after a wonderful start to the tournament, losing to both Poland and Morocco. It was the plane home for them with nothing but thoughts of what might have been. Another large gap would pass them by before the men from the Iberian Peninsula would once again be in the World Cup. They traveled to the Far East with an encouraging-looking group, at least in prospect. Opening the tournament in Korea, Japan, with a shocking defeat to the Americans 3-2 in a wild game, they would bounce back with a furious 4-0 win over Poland to set up the crucial game with the hosts in the 3rd match. A win and you're through to the next round. However, it wasn't meant to be, as the hosts put in a spirited performance on home soil to launch their dream run to the semis. Luis Figo and company would be sent home quite unexpectedly, with naught but disappointment to show for it. In the European Championships of 2004 on home soil, a young man with a legendary namesake would announce himself on the international stage. They would qualify for the 06 World Cup first in the group and would be drawn into a group that they should win comfortably. 3 wins against Angola, Iran, and Mexico were exactly what they needed to go through to face the Dutch in the round of 16. The quarterfinals matched them up after a good victory against old rivals England, and it went 0-0 to penalties. 3-1 in the shootout was enough to see them into the semi-final against Zidane and the French. A disappointing 1-0 loss would relegate them to the 3rd place game against the Germans. Ronaldo was massive for them in the tournament, but only netted once, and the 3-1 loss in their final match meant a 4th place. A 3rd successive qualification for the finals would see Ronaldo and the gang into a very interesting group with Brazil, the Ivory Coast, and North Korea. This tournament was an odd one, as every goal they scored came in one match. A tough 0-0 with the Ivory Coast to start would be followed by an absolute thumping of the North Koreans. I remember thinking it was odd that Portugal had 6 goals and Ronaldo had not gotten on the score sheet. Then the ball bounces off a defender's back on the break and Ronaldo gets his goal for 7-0. They would not score again, as a 0-0 with Brazil was enough to see them through to the round of 16, where they fell to the Spanish 1-0 machine of 2010 in the Iberian Derby. While the group stage draw might have seemed favorable in the previous 2 cups, this group of death in Brazil 2014 was anything but. A 4-0 defeat to eventual champions Germany was the worst possible start they could think of. I think they were a bit surprised at the energy the Americans brought to the second match, and it took an incredible assists from Ronaldo in the 95th minute to stave off elimination and save the 2-2 draw. They needed a win and then some in the final match of the tournament to overcome the goal difference from the first match. Despite the 2-1 win over Ghana, it was not enough, and they would crash out at the group stage. A 5th straight qualification for the Portuguese would see them drawn versus the Spanish in the first match, a chance at revenge against their neighbors in yet another Iberian derby. It was an absolute thriller, complete with a Ronaldo hat trick, but 3 goals couldn't attain 3 points in this 3-3 draw. Ronaldo would net first the Moroccans for the only goal of the game in the second match, meaning all they had to do was avoid a loss versus Iran, and they were through. 1-1 did the trick, and they were on to face the Uruguayans in the round of 16. A hotly contested match ensued, but Pepe's goal would not be enough, and they went down 2-1 to the South Americans. Has Ronaldo come to his last World Cup? He's recently said he has no plans of retiring, but he's been the talisman for a good long while now. Drawn into an interesting group at the Cup, they have a shot at revenge versus their South American villains from last time out, and a spicy rematch with Ghana. Perhaps more revenge to be had for the 0-2 defeat at the hands of the South Koreans is on the docket as well. This is the one for Cristiano Ronaldo, the one to cement your legacy, the one to be the hero he yearns to be. Is he the best ever? Not yet. Win this World Cup, and it may be beyond argument. Can they channel the spirit of Eusebio for their current talisman to surpass his World Cup goal tally and finally summit the highest peak on the highest stage?